Okay, members, you're very welcome along to the July Plan Committee meeting. I'll hand over now to Pontius to do the notice and summons of meeting. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. You are hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the Planning Committee to be held in the Council Chamber, the Guildhall, on Monday, 8th of July, 2024 at 2 p.m. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
He's going to be late.
We have apologies from Alderman Neary McMorris and Alderman Janice Montgomery. Councillor John Boyle. Councillor Caroline Devine.
Chair.
Councillor Sean Fleming.
And Shaw.
Councillor Paul Gallagher. Councillor Christopher Jackson. Thank you. Councillor Farrell Leonard.
And Chair.
Councillor Patricia Logue. Councillor Sean Mooney. Councillor Patrick Murphy. Councillor Martin Riley. Councillor Grace O'Neillis.
Chair.
Councillor John Boyle. Still awaited. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pontius. I'll just read through the broadcasting statement. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. If you're seated in the lower public seating area, media areas, it is possible that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. By entering the council chamber and using the press or lower public seating area, you're consenting to being filmed and consenting to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. If you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. A copy of the council privacy notice may be found on the council website. Okay, moving on to the next item is Chair's business, and I'll go to Pontius first of all.
Thank you, Chair. Members, late items have been received for 3 of the applications, namely numbers 3, 4 and 5. Number 3 refers to the Ela Business Park. Number 5 refers to housing development at Douglas Bridge. And the latter 2 at number 3, Ela Business Park and Douglas Bridge have both we've received amended plans at the end of the week on Friday. And therefore, members, we are recommending that number 3, Ela Business Park, that it should be deferred to allow consultation on that amended application. Similarly, application number 5 at Douglas Bridge, it has a substantially changed application, and the agent has requested to the chair that that should also be deferred to allow full consultation and consideration at a later date. Thank you, Chair.
Members, are you content to defer items 3 and 5? No issues with that. Just to also say at this stage, members, if you want to declare any interest, you can do so now, or you can at any stage through the meeting. Councillor Jackson.
Chair, can I declare an interest in the first application, LA 11 2023 2045F? Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. Declare an interest, LA 11 2024 0083F.
Thank Thank you, Councillor Gallagher.
Thanks.
Members, we're just going to, Pontius is just going to confirm the running order for you at this stage. Thank you, Pontius.
Yes, Chair, the running order will now be application number 1, then number 4, number 6, number 8, and number 10, and then number 2, 7, 9, and then 11 and 12.
Okay, Councillor Jackson, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In relation to item 6, I've read through the report, and I know one of the refusal reasons is around visual frontage. I know there's only so many photographs that can be attached to a report, but in terms of the photographs that are provided, I found it difficult to get a proper view to fully assess the visual the visual linkages between the frontages. So I am at this stage proposing that we defer that application. Personally, I would benefit from more information in relation to making an assessment on visual frontage, and so I think the committee would I would benefit from a site visit. So I would prefer. I'm proposing that we defer this, and I will make a subsequent request for a site visit prior to the next committee meeting. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Jackson. Can you just confirm what, which application that you're referring to, please?
Application number 6, LA 11 2022 0563. It's for, or no, apologies. No, it wasn't number 6. It was item number 10. Item number 10. It was LA 11 2023 1197. It was in full at the lands between 6 and 10 Eden Road in Park. My apologies for that. So I'm making a proposal that we defer that application.
Could I have a seconder for your proposal, please? Councillor McNeice, thank you. Just put it to members. Are you okay with this proposal to defer this one? So just to confirm, that's number 10, proposed infill between 6 and 10 Eden Road, Park Village. Okay, thank you. I'll just ask Pontius now to go through that running order again.
So with those 3 deferrals, it would be number 1, number 4, number 6, number 8, number 2, 7, 9, 11 and 12.
Councillor Jackson, do you want to propose a site visit then for this one?
Well, I'll propose that I'll put a request that we have a site visit for the lands between 6 and 10 Eden Road.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Members, just give everybody proper opportunity to read through the late items. I propose we take a break now for 5 minutes. And there's been a number of late items received there fairly recently, this morning and this afternoon. So we'll take a break now for 5 minutes so you have an opportunity to read through them. Thank you. Okay, members, we found that time useful. Moving on to item 6 on the agenda is matters arising from the open minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 5th of June. Any matters arising? No. Okay, then we'll move on to the plan applications on the agenda today. And first one is LE 11 bar 2023 bar 2045 for bar FS is for most hard standing yard external storage area for foil port. And Rosie's going to take us through this one. Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Item 1 is LA 11 2023 2045F for a proposed hard standing yard to provide external storage for foil port, including perimeter fencing, landscaping and associated works. And this is on lands at Temple Road, Lissahalli, located east of 28 Temple Road, south of buildings 10 and 11 Haw Road, and north of numbers 32 to 48 the Old Fort, Lissahalli, Londonderry. And the recommendation is to approve. The application is before you today as this is a major application and 18 letters of objection have been received. The application was scheduled for presentation in June, members, but was deferred at that meeting for a site inspection by the Planning Committee, and the application's returned to committee today for decision. So this slide just shows the site location. They're outlined in red. And this slide gives an aerial view of the location of the site in the context with the industrial lands and the housing at Strathfoyle. This slide shows a road frontage view from Temple Road. And again, another roadside view from Temple Road, and you can see the dwellings at the Old Fort there in the background. This slide just summarises the plan and policy context, and that is all set out in the planning report. And in summary, the slide just shows the consultee responses, and there's been no objection and where relevant conditions are recommended. In terms then of the representations received, sorry, that slide should say 18 letters that have been received. These are detailed again in the planning report, and these slides just summarise the concerns that were raised by residents, including the industrial zoning and its proximity to Strathfoyle and the residential properties, that the site acts as a buffer between industrial development and the houses in Strathfoyle. There's a request for Foyle Port to engage more with residents, and there's a concern that the site will be used as a transit shed in the future. The need for the shed, the need for the site storage area was questioned. There's concerns regarding the impact on health and well-being due to noise, lighting, air pollution, traffic generation, impact on property values, flooding and environmental repercussions, and visual impact. Again, members, these are all detailed in the planning report, and we'll go through some of them today in this presentation. So in terms of the material considerations, the following slides summarise the main considerations relating to the development. So you'll see that the site is unzoned industrial land, zoned in the Derry Area Plan, and the proposed development being for storage and distribution is a use which is classed as industrial use in the use classes order. So in principle, industrial development on the site is acceptable. In terms of the site layout, the design and layout of the scheme has been determined by the nature of the use. So the site will comprise a large area of hard standing for external storage and distribution, and no buildings are proposed on the site. The use of the site for storage will maintain the open aspect between the built development at Foyle Port to the north here and the residential development at the Old Fort and Strathfoyle. It's proposed that the site boundaries will be enclosed by fencing and planted around with native species hedging and trees, and that the planting then will assist mitigating the visual impact of the storage area on the Strathfoyle village, and it should also help improve with biodiversity. If you note from this plan, there is on this blue line along the southern boundary, so it's maybe not very clear, but it's detailed in the report anyway, that there's an existing trunk water main running along the southern boundary. And the location of that means that the operational site area, which is shown here in grey, is approximately between 15 and 18 metres removed from the dwellings at the old fort. So this area has to be kept clear of any development. The next slide just shows the accessible location of the site between Foyle Port and then the wider strategic road network for onward distribution from the site. So in terms of the plan and policy considerations, in respect of compatibility, the existing industrial uses, the compatibility of this development with existing industrial uses, the development for storage and distribution is also itself an industrial use. There'll be no emissions to air or water as a result of the development, so it's not considered that it will have a detrimental impact on the operations of any existing economic developments in the vicinity. In terms of need, the applicant has set out the case for need and advises that there's a storage yard to the north of the site, which is at approximately 90% capacity. Therefore, additional external storage is required in order to attract large cargo items such as wind turbine components to Foyle Port. And the ability to accept this type of cargo will contribute to the long-term sustainability of the port. In terms of residential amenity, in respect of noise, officers have taken into consideration the neighbours' concerns, the applicant's noise impact assessment and the consultation responses from environmental health. As a result of having to protect the trunk water main, there's an increased distance provided between the operational boundary of the site and the residential dwellings at the old fort, and environmental health who have provided expert assessment in terms of noise, raised no objection. In respect of air quality and dust, there was an air quality impact assessment submitted and again considered by environmental health, and environmental health raised no objection to that report. That there's proposals for a wheel wash at the entrance to the site with regular watering of the site roads if there's a potential to give rise to dust during dry or windy conditions. So officers are satisfied that these conditions are reasonable and necessary in the interests of protecting residential amenity. In terms of residential lighting, it's noted that there's no specific proposal for lighting indicated within the plan. So if there should be any requirement to light the site, this would be subject to further consideration. Residents raised concern regarding impacts on their mental health and well-being given the proximity to industrial uses, and officers have taken account of the requirement to consider these aspects as set out in the SPPS. We acknowledge the close relationship between the residential area Strathfoyle and the zoned industrial lands, and we've balanced consideration of the proposed land use, the rationale and need for the development and the operational nature of the development, and consider that the proposal for storage and distribution will not result in adverse impact on health and well-being. In the interests of residential amenity, conditions are proposed relating to noise limits, delivery times, construction hours and the installation of a wheel wash to reduce dust. In terms of impact on privacy, the development will be separated from the residential dwellings in Strathfoyle by a buffer between 15 and 18 metres wide, and the boundary will be planted by trees, so we don't consider that it's likely there'll be an adverse impact on privacy. In respect of environmental impacts, as the development is for storage, by its nature, it won't result in any operational processes which give rise to emissions to air or water. The site is accessible to Foyle Port and the wider road network, reducing travel distances between the port and the site before onward distribution. And a new on-site storm drainage network is proposed to provide additional capacity for rainfall events resulting from climate change with no flooding of the site occurring. In respect of natural heritage impacts, Shared Environmental Services have advised, having considered the nature, scale, timing and duration and location of the project, that it won't be likely to have a significant effect in any European site, and no designated bird species were recorded on site. NED, Natural Environment Division, are satisfied that the proposal won't have a significant impact on natural heritage features subject to condition. In respect of impact on surface water, the site will comprise a large area of concrete hard standing, and to prevent runoff from the site impacting on water quality, water will pass through a storm bypass fuel interceptor before discharging to the NI water sewer, and water management unit have no objection. In terms of flood risk, a drainage assessment was submitted as part of the proposed development, and a separate storm network will be constructed, and the storm drainage will discharge into the public storm sewer on Temple Road and NI Water, and DFI Rivers have no objection, subject to condition. In terms of traffic generation, this is set out in detail in the planning report, and given its location within the Maydown industrial zoning, DFI Roads has no objection in principle. There's 2 proposed accesses to the site: a primary access to facilitate cars, vans and HGVs that would be arriving on a more frequent basis, and a secondary access near the junction with Hall Road for vehicles accommodating abnormal loads. That would be loads that are, very large. So DFI Roads is content that the managed delivery of wind turbine components to the site by Foyle Port, and the short-term nature of any increases in traffic levels shouldn't have a detrimental impact on road safety or traffic progression. In terms of archaeology, there are recorded archaeological sites and monuments nearby, so archaeological mitigation is required and conditions are attached. So in summary, members, the development proposed in the zoned industrial lands is considered acceptable for the reasons set out in detail in the planning report, and approval is recommended subject to conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rosie. There's one indicator speaker on this, so I'll hand over to Gemma Joplin. Okay, Gemma, and what's your name? Introduce yourself to the committee.
Peter O'Connor from Foyle Consultant Engineers, which is part of Foyle Port.
Thank you, Peter and Jamie, you're both very welcome. 5 minutes in total now to address the committee. Many thanks.
Chair, thank you for the opportunity to address the committee today. We're out here on behalf of Foyle Port to ask you to endorse the officer's recommendation and approve this application. I'm conscious you've quite a bit to get through, so I don't propose to take up too much of your time. But what we would say is, as the officer has set out in their detailed presentation, this application is fully compliant with the Derry Area Plan and all other policy. This land has been zoned for industrial and economic use since 1999, well over 20 years, and as such, Foyle Port acquired this site with the understanding of the preferred land use. We believe the proposed storage use is very sympathetic to both the industrial zoning but also the nearby housing. This use will have the least type of impact on residential properties and offers a positive transition between the heavier industrial uses to the north and the housing to the south. And in addition, and following community engagement and with stakeholders at the outset, we included a number of additional mitigation measures, which Rosemary has gone through. This included the offset between the housing and the storage area, the substantial landscaping buffer, and also limiting the access to the northern part of the site to keep circulation away. This proposal is critically important to the port and its ongoing operations. So again, members committee, thank you for your time, and we're available to answer any questions. And we again would respectfully ask for you to endorse the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. Okay, members, floor is open to you if you have any questions to ask of Gemma or Peter there. Seems as if there's no questions for you. So thank you very much for your time, Gemma, Peter, thank you. So members, that's a recommendation is to approve. So it's over to yourselves now. Apologies, just before I do go on, have you any questions for Rosie? None, so I'll hand it over to yourselves there now for comment. Councillor Fleming,
I'm willing to make a proposal that we accept the officer's recommendation and approve the application.
do we have a seconder? Councillor Murphy. Any dissenting voices in this, or everybody happy enough to go with the proposal and seconder? No, thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, members, we're going to move on to number 4 this time, LA 11 bar 2023 bar 1701 bar DC. Discharge of conditions 2 and 9 regarding provision CMP at Riverside Stadium at Glensheen Road, YMC, Drummahoe. And Andre is going to take us through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Item 4 is LA 11 2023 1701 DC, and it is an application seeking to discharge conditions 2 and 9 of planning approval LA 11 2022 0112F for demolition of the Riverside Stadium and remedial works to return land to Greenfield use at lands at Riverside Stadium, 51 Glensheen Road in Drummahoe, and the recommendation is the conditions to be discharged. The reason the application is in front of members today is because more than 5 letters of representation were received during the processing of the application. So members, condition 2 and 9, an outline construction environmental management plan, a SEMP, was submitted with the previous full application, which was granted approval subject to conditions by the Planning Committee in June 2022. So condition 2 of that approval required the submission of a final SEMP to be submitted to and agreed with the Planning Authority prior to the commencement of the demolition works, and this was to ensure effective avoidance and mitigation methodologies have been planned for the protection of the water environment. The reason for condition 2 was to protect the features of the River Faughan and tributaries ASSI and SAC. So condition 9 of the approval required the submission of a final SEMP containing a detailed construction work programme to identify any specific adverse noise, vibration and dust impacts arising from each phase of the ground and reinstatement works, detailed plans to minimise the risk to local residents from dust, noise and vibration, and arrangements for community liaison and complaints procedure. The reason for this condition is to protect residential amenity. The conditions require that the approved final SEMP shall be implemented in accordance with the approved details, and all works in site shall conform to the approved final SEMP. So members, this is just the site location plan, just showing the location of the site at the former Riverside Stadium in Drummahoe. This is just an aerial spatial NI map of the site, and just a photograph of the pitch and the stands. So representations were received during the processing of the application. The main issues raised were concerns regarding the timing of rock hammering to take place at the site and the effects on the local fish population. The fact that Lochs Agency should be consulted on the discharge condition, concerns that the HRA carried out by SES under the previous planning approval, LA 11 2022-0122 is flawed. The location of the access impact from removal of a synthetic pitch. So members will also have seen 2 representations received from the Ulster Angling Federation, which have been sent to members as late items. And there's also a late item, which is correspondence from the agent, Mr. McIver. So members, condition 3 of the original plan approval stated that rock hammering shall be restricted to summer months, i.e. between June and September and during daylight hours. So the initial SEMP that was submitted with this discharge of condition application contained some inaccuracies, and the agent was requested to address the issues, and amendments to the CEMP were duly submitted. The initial SEMP submitted with the discharge of condition application also proposed that access to the site to allow for demolition works to take place would be via the park and ride car park and through a field to the west of the site. And again, the agent was requested to amend the access to that as approved under the previous application. So during this discharge of condition application, the following consultees were consulted. And NIEA Water Management Unit responded saying that they were content for condition 2 to be discharged. NIEA NED advised consultation should be carried out with shared environmental services. SES were duly consulted and they are content to discharge condition 2, subject to ongoing compliance with the SEMP throughout the demolition remedial works. Locks Agency were also consulted and are content to discharge condition 2, and Environmental Health Department is content with regards to the discharge of condition 9. So members, this slide just details the scope of the CEMP and what is contained within it. So Locks Agency, in their consultation response, which was received on the 3rd of April, said that they had sight of the amended construction environmental management plan and are content that the rock hammering working window reflects Locks Agency in-stream working window. Locks Agency are therefore content for condition 2 to be discharged, and the applicant should demonstrate best environmental practice when working close to the watercourses. So concern had also been raised regarding the original application's habitat regulation assessment and whether it was fit for purpose and needed to be revisited. In consultation with SES, it was confirmed that condition 2, on foot of an appropriate assessment, required the final agreement of the council prior to the works commencing on site. As works could not lawfully commence, there was no risk to the European site. The key purpose of the assessment provisions to ensure that a plan or project is authorised only to the extent that it will not, either alone or in combination with other plans or projects, adversely affect the integrity of the European site has been met. So therefore, officers in consultation with SES would advise members that a new standalone habitat regulation assessment is not necessary for this application to discharge conditions 2 and 9. So in conclusion, members, officers are satisfied that conditions 2 and 9 can be discharged. The submitted SEMP has met the requirements of the relevant conditions and has been amended and clarified so as not to contradict with condition 3 of the original plan approval, which is a condition regarding the appropriate timing for conducting any rock hammering on the site. All consultees have no objection to the discharge of the conditions, and officers therefore recommend that conditions 2 and 9 of LA 11 2022-0112 are discharged. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much, Andre. There's one indicator speaker, Mr. Dean Blackwood, on behalf of the objectors. If Dean, you'd like to come forward now, thank you. Hello, Dean, you're welcome to the committee today. You have 5 minutes now to address the committee. Thank you.
Sorry, excuse me. Let's just hold this. River Faughan Anglers' concerns are many regarding the processing in this case. The law was blithely breached regarding the EIA screening, but as that is now a matter for the Ombudsman, I'll not focus on that any further. RFA is still unclear how this committee can properly assess a project when the location of proposed settlement ponds that are to discharge to the River Faughan remains unknown, despite our requests for clarification on where they are. The planners need to be constantly reminded to consult the Lochs Agency, the body with expertise and statutory responsibilities for fisheries conservation and protection on the Faughan is an ongoing cause for concern. But the remainder of this presentation will focus fundamentally on the professional assessment required under the strictly precautionary habitats regulations. The River Faughan is a special area of conservation, supposedly afforded the highest environmental protections in Europe. But these protections are seriously undermined each time this planning committee is presented with fundamentally flawed professional assessments. This not only risks you acting unlawfully, but places a key designation and protected species at a real risk of environmental harm. The law requires this committee to consent to a project only when you have established that no reasonable scientific doubt remains as to the absence of adverse effects on the integrity of the SAC. In other words, you must be satisfied that the absence of adverse effects has been proven. The way you do that is by carrying out a robust habitats regulations assessment. This clearly was not the case when you granted the original permission for the demolition of the Riverside Stadium in 2022. That a competent authority could have got this so wrong at that time should be of serious concern to you as decision makers. If it isn't obvious now, what you accepted in terms of environmental mitigation in 2022 is very different to what you're now being asked to agree to today. In fact, it's essentially the opposite. When this planning committee granted permission back in 2022, it did so on the basis of a fundamentally flawed HRA. While recognising that harm can be caused to protected species by rock hammering, alarmingly the HRA then went on to stipulate that rock hammering must be carried out at the very times when it would cause most harm to a protected species. It is not right for planners to now claim that the strictly precautionary approach required by law has been met while having failed to carry out a new HRA for this subsequent application. Once again, RFA finds itself before this committee not objecting to the planning application, but strongly objecting to the sustained professional neglect that is placing our river at serious risk of environmental harm. To be clear, had RFA and others not intervened to point out the fundamentally flawed HRA and the failure to consult Lochs Agency, it is clear that this planning committee would have repeated the same fundamental error of assessment from 2022 and discharged the planning condition that would have sanctioned significant harm to the Faughan SAC. Such fundamental errors of professional assessment and an apparent inability to learn from lessons from the past continues to undermine public trust in this Council's planning service. As repeatedly expressed, RFA has no desire to delay the discharge of this condition, but this committee needs to be satisfied that it is doing so within the strictly precautionary provisions of the habitats regulations. So as decision makers, you might want to seek clarification from officers. Did they present a fundamentally flawed habitats regulations assessment to the committee in June 22? And if so, why is it appropriate to rely on that flawed HRA today rather than undertake a new one in line with the strictly precautionary requirements of the law? And lastly, as decision makers, you will want assurance that you will not be acting unlawfully if you consent to this subsequent application without a new HRA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mackwood, for communicating your views to us there. Can you just remain in your seat to see if there's any questions from the committee? Thank you. No, it doesn't. Because if there's any questions, Faisal, thanks very much for attending the meeting today. Okay, members, are there any questions for the officer concerning this? Councillor Jackson.
Good Chair. Is there a representative from Shared Environmental Services at the meeting?
Through the chair, yes, Councillor Jackson, there is Malachy Kearney here from Shared Environmental Services.
Because I note within a report, I suppose it would be remiss of me not to thank Mr. Blackwood and RFA for everything that they're doing in relation to the protection of the River Faughan. And I know Dean's no stranger to this committee, and I find his contributions extremely positive in terms of the decision-making process. But in relation to this application and the HRA, where within our report, it's stated here that Shared Environmental Services is content to discharge condition 2. Is that decision still valid? Is that information still valid? And what's Shared Environmental Services assessment of the HRA? So just if I could get a wee bit of clarity on that, Chair. Thanks.
Go ahead, Malachy.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, Chair, SES did undertake an appropriate assessment on the principal application, and the appellant's ecologist undertook a study of Lochs Agency data. Everyone understood the effects on the migrating Atlantic salmon, as Mr. Blackwood has just alluded to, and no one was objecting to rock hammering taking place. The critical issue was the timing of that rock hammering. Now, based on the work undertaken by the appellant's ecologist and in consultation with NIEA as required under the regulations, NIEA was content. And so SES concluded that having regard to how the works were to be carried out and the mitigation proposed, there would be no adverse effects. And further, because of the certainty around the mitigation, we proposed that the conditions should be set to ensure that a final KEMP was submitted by the contractor. And that's to ensure that he's aware of the measures he must take to avoid any harm to the designated site features. So that was also a protective condition in its own right, because it's prior to commencement, the agreement must be sought from the council. Now, unfortunately, that timing issue came to the fore. I accept it's an issue, but it's not material couched in how we undertook the appropriate assessment and the setting of the condition. And so we are now content, having looked at the Lochs Agency response, that their advice should be taken. The KEMP has been updated to reflect that, and it will be implemented in full. And as you've heard, that there will be ongoing monitoring of that to ensure that that's implemented in full. So at no time was there any risk of an adverse effect on the designated site or the features. I hope that assists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. It's just, I think this application, if I've heard it right, is contingent on this issue that's come to the fore about the habitats assessment. There's clearly a divergence of opinion between what officers saying and what Mr. Blackwood's saying, and obviously one's saying we don't need one, and obviously the other, Mr. Blackwood's saying that we do need a robust assessment. If the committee was minded to bring an assessment or ask for an assessment, would that bring any additionality to what other information we've been given already? Clearly, will it bring new information that, you know, would be a benefit or addition to us that we could, you know, I know one party saying the other and the other party saying the other, but really my question is, if we ordered that assessment, would that bring us any additionality that we could improve our decision making as a committee? Thank you.
Andrew, your follow-up, you want to come back to that?
So I think the question is whether or not there would be any additional information. Not as I understand it, no.
Go ahead.
So based on what Mr. Black was saying on the precautionary principle, you know, would it be of benefit for us to obtain the assessment? Or is it simply not going to furnish us with any further information at this moment in time? Or for me to allow me to come to a decision now?
Sorry, Councillor Mooney, I'm just struggling ever so slightly to.
I'll try and get. You know, I think what it is saying, you know, would it benefit the committee if we had the assessment? That's really about that's as base as I can put it. So it is. Thank you.
I mean, I suppose the question for me would be more whether or not there would be any legal obligation for a further assessment to be carried out. As I say, the issue has been considered by the officers and is set out in the report. I think what Malachy has indicated at this stage is that they believe that they have all of the information that they require, and that there is nothing further that would be required in order to proceed at this stage. And that's the position.
Thank you for the clarifications. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you. So if I go on to get the hand rounds and such, see, for me, when no reading this and these conditions were put in place in the first place, they seem to be very for prudent measures, that it was done to try and alleviate and minimize risk. And when we hear that there's so many unknowns, you know, what advantages does committee to remove those two conditions with so many unknowns, when we should be going towards the side of trying to mitigate risks to this environmental site? So I'm not sure what advantage that I can see this committee to approve removing these two. I'm not getting it.
Through the chair, this is an application. It's not to remove the conditions. So it's asking for permission to discharge the conditions. So what the applicant, so we put the original, the conditions 2 and 9 on the previous approval. So the previous approval, which granted full permission for the demolition of the stadium, had two conditions that, well, it had numerous conditions attached, but condition 2 and 9 required further information to be submitted and agreed in writing with the council, with the planning authority, before demolition could take place. And that was that the applicant had to submit a final construction environmental management plan in order to provide the details, the site-specific details, that has then been looked at by officers and our consultees, including Lochs Agency and Shared Environmental Services and NIEA. And all those consultees and ourselves have considered the information in that detail, and we are now content that the conditions can be discharged, not removed. So it just allows that process to continue for the applicant to be able to go on site now and to carry out his permission because he has now complied with the conditions. He has submitted the details and the details have been agreed. So what we're asking committee to do today is to allow officers to discharge the conditions and that we are content that the information that the applicant has submitted gives us the detail in and around how he will carry out the works that will not cause environmental harm to designated sites and to residential amenity, which was the reason the two conditions were put on the outline approved, or sorry, the full permission in the first place. Yeah.
Councillor Kellerton, content with that, or is there anything else you want to ask about?
Well, I'm not sure if I am content with it. It's just that if the work commences and damage does occur, environmental damage does occur, and we've sat and maybe considered it, and then we start scratching our head saying, if we had had this report, we might have identified that. And we can't do it retrospectively.
So, sorry, through the chair, so the conditions say that you have to submit the details as to what you're going to do in order to mitigate any environmental impact, negative impact, and you must carry that work out in accordance with the details that have been agreed. So the detail that has been submitted now in the application, if we discharge the condition still says that those works have to be carried out as agreed. So it is up to the developer to carry out those works and do not cause detrimental impacts. If work is carried out that is not in conformity with the details that we have now, then that's a different issue. That's not being carried out in accordance with the agreed SEMP, if members agree to it.
That's enough of that, Councillor Keller. Any further questions? Any further questions on your point?
No.
Any other members, any questions for either Andre or Malachy, whenever we have them here? No more questions. Do you want to come in there?
Yeah, if there's no further questions. Chair, we've received the assurances from Shared Environmental Services. We've received assurance from our own planning department. We've received the consultation responses from the Locks Agency. And I know there's never any cast iron guarantee, but we've been told that in terms of the information that's provided to us today, I'm content to support the recommendation and discharge these two conditions. The works that are carried out that need to be carried out at this site are essential. And ultimately in the long term will help support and safeguard this designated site. So because essentially what we're talking about here is the removal of a stadium that was destroyed by a flooding event. There's the applicant of this site, or of the applicant in this application has went to great lengths to try and rebuild their home after the flooding events, and this is another step along that way. And from all the statutory consultees that we've heard from, and from our own professional planning team, we've been given the assurances that there will be no adverse impacts by the discharge of these two conditions, and on that basis, I'm content to propose that we accept the recommendation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Can I have a seconder for this, please? Councillor Fleming, thank you. Can I just check on members, any dissenting voices? Councillor Carey.
I have to abstain as well, Chair, from us the start of it.
So we have 2 abstentions. Do we take it that everybody else is in favour of the proposal? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Members, we're moving on now to item 6, is LA 11 bar 2022 bar 0563 bar F, and Laura will be taking us through this one.
Sorry, members, we've got a technical difficulties there. So application LA 11 2022 0563 is a full application for the erection of a new wind turbine up to 250 kilowatts with a 59 metre tower and a 54 metre rotor diameter to replace an existing wind turbine with a 30 metre tower and a 30 metre rotor diameter, which was previously approved under J 2011 0068F, and it's located at lands 450 metres south of 28 Annalher Road, Castledairg, and the recommendation is to approve. So this application is before members today, as there were more than 5 objections received, and the application was also referred. So in terms of the application site, as you can see here on the site location plan and the aerial image, the sites, it's a circular portion of land there outlined in red within a larger agricultural field, and it contains an existing operational 2-blade wind turbine. It's accessed via an existing access lane through the farmyard at 28 Annalher Road, which is just north there of the application site. It's set about 500 metres south of Annalher Road and 400 metres west of Minamullen Road, and it's located in the rural area approximately 1.3 kilometres southwest of Cleator. So this is some images of the existing turbine that's located on the application site. And then this is the drawings which indicate the proposed wind turbine and its location. Just a note that should this be approved, the existing turbine would be removed. There can only be one turbine at this location. And just again to point out that the proposed turbine will have a 59 metre hub and a 54 metre rotor diameter. So this is the policy context under which this application was assessed. The main policy here in terms of this planning application is PPS 18 renewable energy. So there are a number of consultations taking place through the processing of this application. Following the submission of a number of different documents and information, there have been no objections to the proposal with standard conditions recommended from the relevant consultees. So as I said, there's been a number of objections to this planning application. We've had 13 letters of objection from 6 separate households. So just you can see there on the map, that just identifies the properties which objected to the planning application, and there in red is just kind of an indication of the location of the application site. So there are a number of different reasons for the objections, which are considered in detail in the planning report. In terms of the planning history, so there's an existing operational turbine there approved under J 2011-0068 back in May 2011. So unfortunately, we omitted, there's another history associated with this planning application site. It was omitted from the report, but just to point out here, there's a current application for an alternative replacement proposal, LA11 2023-2142. It's for a similar turbine, but the main difference being it has a 50-meter hub height. That application is still under consideration. So this drawing, which is also included in the planning report, identifies the different wind energy development within the immediate area. So there are a number there are 3 small domestic micro wind turbines identified there in green. And then we have the wind farms of Seagronan and Church Hill, which are located south of the application site. And then also constructions commenced to extend Seagronan wind farm with an additional 3 turbines, which are highlighted there in yellow. So as I pointed out, the main policy for considering this planning application is under PPS 18. So in terms of the visual amenity and landscape character, so the proposed turbine has a 50-meter hub height, which is a 29-meter increase in the hub of the existing turbine. We'll have a 54-meter rotor diameter, which is a 24-meter increase in the existing rotor diameter, which increases the height from the blade tip 45 meters, from 45 meters to 86 meters now is proposed. So this drawing also indicates the location from where all the viewpoints were considered in terms of this planning application. Just to point out as well, and in case members have picked it up in the report, Visual 8 was just the wee point there indicating it on the drawing was omitted. So I've put it onto this drawing here for going forward. The turbine on the application site, the existing one and the proposed, will be intervisible with the wind farms to the south and southwest, and also with the micro turbines, which are located north of the site. This is seen in the visuals. I'll just flick through these here. These are all within the planning report as well too. So you can see highlighted in red, and these that's the existing turbine with any other turbines then highlighted as well for you. So the proposed turbine will be visible at both long and short range views along the local rural road network. And this is just some visuals along these roads. This is a Helena Road. Again, a Helena Road, just showing a different view. And obviously these show the existing turbine, but the proposed turbine will be in the exact same position. Just from Church Road there, you can see the existing turbine and some of the turbines from the wind farm, as well as those other micro turbines. And this is just a longer range view here from Park Road, which is north of the site, where you can see some more of the turbines that are associated with the wind farms. And again, this is another longer range view. So overall, in terms of the visual amenity and the landscape character, officers have considered the proposal and considered that the increase in scale of the turbine wouldn't have an unacceptable adverse impact on the visual amenity or the landscape character of the surrounding area. The replacement turbine will be viewed in the context of the surrounding wind energy development and won't appear disproportionate in scale to other wind turbines in the locality. The replacement proposal will not have a greater cumulative visual impact with the surrounding developments, and that it's replacing the existing turbine that's there. So overall, it's considered that the proposal complies with policy RE1 of PPS 18 with regards to the visual amenity and landscape character. So in terms of this proposal, policy RE1 also requires that we assess it in terms of noise, and that's also considered under the SPPS. So a noise impact assessment was received, and I think we have a number of revisions to that. It concluded that the noise from the proposed turbine on its own, when considered cumulatively with the existing wind energy development, it's assessed noise at 14 surrounding residential properties. This is all considered in detail of the planning report. That the map there just indicates the noise. They're called noise sensitive receptors, but it's the properties which were considered under the noise report. So environmental health have considered all the information submitted in terms of noise with the planning application. So they've concluded that there are no predicted exceedances at daytime or nighttime noise limits for any of the NSRs for the turbine operating and so on. So they've also concluded that there's one minor exceedance at number 17 Millen Road. However, this property is financially involved with the wind farms, and then as a result is afforded a higher financially involved noise limit, which wouldn't be exceeded. And the cumulative noise limits are met at all the other noise sensitive receptors. In terms of control on this, conditions will be included should approval be granted to ensure that the proposal complies with the predicted noise levels as set out in the noise assessment. So therefore, in consideration of noise, officers are content, given the information submitted, that there won't be an adverse impact. So the proposal is also considered in terms of shadow flicker, and an assessment is provided in that respect. So there will be shadow flicker at certain properties, and there are 6 properties within the potential affected area. So as you can see from the planning report there, and just summarised, it will be exceeded by the 30-minute per day limit by 2 minutes, and the at 15 Millen Road, and their shadow flicker at 17 Millen Road will exceed the recommended 30-minute per day limit by 8 minutes, and the 30 hours per year limit by 17 hours. But software has been proposed, which will shut off the wind turbine, which would then mitigate against that potential impact. And that has been provided, and that can be conditioned should approval be granted. So therefore, we would be content that there wouldn't be an adverse impact in terms of shadow flicker at any potentially affected properties. Then other matters, just there's sufficient separation distance from the nearest dwelling to protect in terms of any falling distance or the roadside, and there are no issues with electromagnetic interference or aviation safety, which has been considered by all the consultees. So therefore, in terms of residential amenity, public safety and human health, we're content that complies with policy RE1 of PPS 18 and the SPPS. In terms of biodiversity, the site's within grassland, contains an existing turbine and access by an existing laneway. There's this 50-metre separation distance to the nearest watercourse. NIA and SES have been consulted and are content to have NIA regulation unit. There's also HED have been consulted due to a historic monument, but they're content that there won't be any additional adverse impact, and there are no listed buildings within the vicinity of the development. So therefore, in terms of policy RE1, PPS 2 and PPS 6 and the SPPS, officers are content in that respect. Proposal uses existing access lane off Annalaher Road, and it won't lead to any intensification of the existing access. DFI roads have no objection. Therefore, the proposal is considered to comply with policy RE1 and PPS 3. So just to summarise, It's considered that the increase in scale of the replacement turbine won't have an unacceptable adverse impact on the visual amenity or the landscape character of this area. It won't adversely affect the amenity of surrounding properties in terms of noise. Mitigation has been proposed to protect the amenity of nearby residents in terms of shadow, flicker and noise. And the development will not have an adverse impact on any biodiversity or nature conservation interests. And overall approval is recommended for the conditions which are set out in the planning report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Leave with Anne-Marie Dolan. Anne-Marie, if you'd like to come forward now. Anne-Marie speaking on behalf of the objectors to this application. Hello, Anne-Marie, you're very welcome to the Planning Committee today. Isn't you have 5 minutes to address the committee now? Thank you.
Thank you. While I welcome an application to replace the current turbine, I do not welcome the proposed replacement turbine presented in the planning application, and I'll give my reasons why. Point 1, background noise data for the cumulative noise assessment. 25 Meenamullen Road was used as the background base noise for the cumulative assessment, and 25 Meenamullen Road is approximately 1,190 metres from the turbine site, while our home is 390 metres from the turbine site. The data collected at 25 Meenamullen Road is not comparable to the noise where we live. It is also worth noting that this data was collected in 2007. Just because it's all that is available, it is not a good enough reason for the council to use it. It is the council's responsibility to ensure approval is not granted based on incorrect and incomplete information to protect neighbouring homes. Point 2, the Sagronan extension. There's current construction ongoing for 3 turbines on the same hill as the proposed replacement. The Sagronan extension was refused due to noise, and further noise assessments were required. The noise reports available on public access show that even though planning was eventually passed, that noise at our home will breach the upper amenity noise level set out in the FC guidelines. I know that revision 5 in the report has factored in these 3 yet to be erected turbines in the cumulative assessment. However, I have no faith that true accurate noise levels were used and reflected. Point 3, wind speed at 7 metres per second. Predicted cumulative noise levels at various wind speeds is given on page 21 of the revision 5 report. Our home is noise sensitive receptor 3, and it shows a predicted cumulative noise of 37.3 decibels at wind speed of 7 metres per second. This is a margin of 0.7 from the daytime upper limit of 38 decibels. It's too narrow to be comfortable and reassured that the noise will not breach the limits, especially when the background noise data is not used as not fit for purpose. Point 4, valley correction. A +3 decibel valley correction was included in revision 4 and then removed from revision 5 after calculations were carried out between the turbine site and noise sensitive receptor 1. This property is uphill from our home. For noise sensitive receptor 1, the result was 36.7, which was less than the threshold of 41.25, which is only a difference of 4.5. I believe if our home was used noise sensitive receptor 3, the calculated figure would have been greater than the threshold, as the valley runs deeper between the turbine site and our home than it does for noise sensitive receptor 1. Therefore, the +3 decibel valley correction would have been upheld and the noise would have exceeded the limits. Point 5, size and visual amenity. The size of the proposed turbine is almost twice the size of the current turbine on site. It is a single turbine and there are 2 other single turbines in the area, both of which are only 15 metres high. To erect a 59 metre hub height turbine with a blade tip height of 86 metres would be so unfair to the residents of Meenamullen Road. It would be a complete eyesore and 100% affect visual amenity from my home. We would have the constant swish and turn of the blades all day, every day of the year. There's no escaping it. It's unacceptable to think how anyone would propose to replace it with something so huge in comparison. I'm pleading with the committee members to take on my genuine concerns, as they are real life for me and my family. And the planning report just presented to you today, the images show the turbine in line with others from the wind farm up the hill. But if you notice, it is only the blades, or in some instances only the blade tips of the turbines from the wind farms that you see. The current turbine is in full view of Cleator and Ahern area. The proposed replacement turbine will be in full view, from base to blade tip. It's not comparable with those in the wind farm where you only see the tops of the turbine and for some only the blade tips. Point 6, which wasn't detailed in the summary, is the red aviation light. Due to the size of the proposed turbine, a red aviation light has to be installed at the cell to protect low-flying aircraft. So the planning report states that no adverse impacts are anticipated as a result of any aviation warning light. I fail to see how any planner could say this if they considered the proposed turbine and its location from our home. It'll 100% have adverse impacts to us, since the turbine is clearly visible from our bedroom, our living room and our kitchen family room. The red light will be a foreign object in the night sky. And I have a picture printed out from that standing at the gable wall of my home and the turbine. Like that's from the window. So if that's twice the size and the red light in the sky, of course it's going to affect us. Shadow flicker, but there is software going to mitigate this shadow flicker. So to conclude, of the 8 homes on Mina Mullen Road, 6 of them submitted objections to this planning application, all expressing the same themes for their objection: noise, visual amenity and the sheer size of the proposed turbine and its close proximity to our home. In 2011, when the original planning application was submitted for the existing turbine, Environmental Health recommended refusal due to noise at neighbouring properties. However, the planning department passed the application without any further noise assessment taking place. The turbine was erected in 2012 and I opened a complaint with Strabane District Council Environmental Health for noise nuisance. Currently, we're in court proceedings to stop the noise nuisance caused by the turbine on site. This shows the feelings of the planning department.
Anne-Marie, your 5 minutes is now up.
I'm almost done. It's okay to continue?
Just bring your points to a close now if you can, please, quickly, Anne-Marie.
This shows how the failings of the planning department in 2011 have led to years of torture for me and my family, and this cannot be repeated. While I appreciate the proposed turbine will not exhibit the tonal noise or any amplitude modulation, it will still have the blade swish, the whir and the hum. There's no denying that. The huge size of the turbine and how close it is to our home. Since planning was originally granted for a 30-metre hub-high turbine, then a replacement of 30 metres is what should be proposed as an acceptable replacement. Nothing larger than a 30-metre hub-high should be permitted on this site. I appeal to each of you as elected council members to put yourself in my shoes, in my home and in my garden. Imagine you had to put up with a proposed turbine next to your home and the impact it would have on you and your family. Please see that it's unacceptable and totally unfair to us. Please refuse this planning application so a more suitable replacement can be sought.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you. You just remain your seat there, Anne-Marie. I'll just ask if any of the committee members have any questions here for Anne-Marie.
That's the turbine from our home.
We'll just keep the photograph there, just Anne-Marie. Thank you. Any questions for Anne-Marie? Thank you very much, Anne-Marie, for attending today.
She's not sure.
Yeah, Declan, you're welcome to the chamber today. You have 5 minutes to address the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. There are 2 primary considerations worthy of additional comment in support of that extensively and robustly covered by the case officer. Those are noise and size, scale or visual impact. With respect to noise, there are 2 important factors. Number 1, betterment. There is no dissent that the proposed replacement is a quieter turbine. This is an important consideration, and members should be aware of the background to the application from the applicant's standpoint. In February of 2021, as part of the applicant's due diligence prior to purchase of the wind turbine from the previous Spanish-based owners, he established that a noise complaint had been made in 2017 and investigated by the Council's Environmental Health Department. There have been no further action taken or complaints noted in the intervening 4 years. Nonetheless, he engaged with the neighbour primarily associated with that complaint and asked if he would be supportive of a change to a 3-bladed turbine. The neighbour agreed to consider the change of turbine along with other neighbours on Mina Mullen Road. The neighbours, according to their spokesman, were not willing to consider any alternative turbine on the site, regrettably. Within a matter of months, the noise nuisance complaint was resurrected with Environmental Health, and the applicant, in an attempt to progress the matter and find a solution, agreed to meet with Environmental Health in September of 2021. At that meeting, the applicant agreed to invest in a 3-bladed turbine and proposed a Vestas reconditioned machine. Environmental Health expressed the desire for a new turbine and referred specifically to the EWT turbine as proposed. Members should be aware that there is a significant cost differential between both, in the region of approximately £1.1 million. The applicant reluctantly agreed to this and submitted the planning application in May of 22, upon completion of necessary survey works, BAT surveys and noise reports, etc. A noise abatement notice was issued to the applicant in June 2022 in a move that the applicant felt was bad faith considering his undertakings to that point. Notwithstanding the ongoing abatement proceedings, which is currently the subject of an appeal, the applicant continues to stand over his commitment to install a quieter wind turbine on this site. Number 2, control and regulation. The existing turbine has been built in accordance with a planning approval which dates back to 2011, which has only 2 conditions, neither of which relate to noise. The proposed development, including the proposed conditions, will require the development to remain within ETSU-defined noise limits. This provides the Council with power to regulate, as opposed to the existing situation and a reliance on nuisance legislation. This will afford superior comfort to the neighbouring properties as well in terms of protection of noise amenity. There are 2 further considerations in relation to size and scale that I would like to emphasise to members. Number 1, the planning report notes that the assessment carried out included a review of existing wind energy development in the area, which was considered on a cumulative basis. The nearby turbines are larger than the proposed development at 110 metres to tip height, and the proposed turbine dimensions, i.e. 86 metres to tip height, together with the conformity of a 3-bladed rotor as opposed to the incongruity of the existing 2-bladed rotor, actually help the wind turbine integrate and consolidate into the landscape setting. It will be more proportionate when viewed in combination with the existing larger wind turbines located on the higher slopes surrounding the proposal. Number 2, the objectors refer to the size and scale of the proposed wind turbine using terminology such as overpowering, aggressive and dominant. However, I would note that this is a medium-scale wind turbine and a turbine which is of size and scale which is common across the single wind turbine industry in modern times as developers across the country attempt to repower existing smaller turbines. In Derry and Strabane alone over the past 5 years, I have counted 11 wind turbine approvals for similar size and scale configuration to that of the proposal. I'll touch very briefly, Chair, just a point was raised in relation to background data, just to point out as well that the background data was used from a previous application because it's impossible to get fresh, raw background data in this area now because there's so many wind farms nearby. And also in terms of, there was a point raised in relation to valley correction. The valley correction calculations were done at NSRs 1, 2, 3 and 4. So on the back of this consideration, as well as thorough assessment having been carried out by the Council's Planning Department, we respectfully commend the case officer's recommendation to the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Declan. Over to members. Have you any questions for Declan, please? Councillor Devine.
Chair. I have a couple of queries and I'm not quite sure maybe whether they go to the applicant or the planner, so I'm going to address them to the applicant now. In terms of, are there any data collection following the installation or the commissioning of a turbine so that we could be fairly certain and be assured that the data, the noise data that's provided within the report is similar to what it would actually produce in reality? What criteria then was used? We've talked about measuring the background data, and I suppose what is the criteria around that, and can we stand over the fact that that background noise assessment point is going to give an accurate view again of what the background noise? And I've also noted that there's no SRN at 25 Minimum Road, even though it is being used as a background, the location for the background noise. And do we have evidence? We've talked about the Flickr software. Is there evidence of the effectiveness of that software?
Okay, Declan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Just in relation, I suppose, I'll try and deal with them individually. First of all, you mentioned I think the conditions relative to noise, and I'm sure that the planning department will want to speak to that. But I don't know if you've had a look at the proposed conditions in the report, Councillor, which includes a wealth of conditions relative to noise. So it's very stringent and very strong, particularly going back to the point that I made about the existing turbine on the site, which obviously is on the parent permission, if you like, the 2011 permission. There's no conditions relative to noise at all. And look, that's, I guess it's part of those historical applications and the way that they were dealt with. It wasn't a big factor at that particular point. Obviously nowadays it is. So there's really strong conditions proposed in relation to noise to ensure that the turbine is doing what we as the applicant or agent are saying that it's going to do. And the same applies in relation to shadow flicker and ensuring that the shadow flicker module works as we say it's going to work. Also, I would point out that the conditionality of the shadow flicker module is something that has been washed through the PAC on several occasions now at this stage. It's something that is widely accepted. Forgive me, Councillor, if I'm not hitting all your points here. The other issue I think you raised was in relation to the background noise data on 25 Mina Mullen. This is actually something that we probably all agree on, because the background noise data for 25 Mina Mullen Road is unusually quiet. And from looking at that, obviously from the applicant's perspective, the quieter the background data, the less distance that you have to go to third-party dwellings. Because the way that actually works is that it's background data plus 5 decibels. And if that background data is low, when you put the plus 5 to it, it's not giving you much scope. So, but it was used in the previous applications, and we were directed to use it by the Council's Environmental Health Department as well. Does that cover your queries, Councillor? Sorry.
Councillor Devine.
Just the first question was not specifically in relation to conditions, but in relation to monitoring noise data after the turbine is commissioned. So maybe that's for planning.
Yes, Councillor, there is conditions in there relative to monitoring. I don't know them off by heart, so I'll let the planning officer come back to it, but the conditions are there.
Any further questions for Declan? No, thank you, Declan, for attending today. Any questions now for Laura? Councillor Devine, go ahead.
So, Chair, it's just that question again. Are there, I suppose, practices in place that will continuously monitor the noise data, or is it only when there's a complaint, or how is that monitored after the turbine is put up?
Thank you, Chair. So there are a number of conditions in the planning report. So condition 4 in itself reflects the noise impact assessment which was submitted through the planning application. So that condition would require that that the turbine wouldn't exceed any of the levels that are predicted in the noise impact assessment. And then, if we did receive any complaints, the conditions then which follow on from that would require the applicant or the agent to submit further information in that respect and further monitoring, so that then that we could assess if there was a noise impact. So I think that possibly answers your question.
Councillor Devine, follow up? Yep. Any other questions for Laura? Thank you. Okay, members, recommendation in front of you. It's over to yourselves now. Councillor Devine.
I want to thank officers for providing a really detailed report. There's a lot of information in there and a lot of technical information. Having looked at the report, and I know the decisions are made and assessed around PPS 18, which is best policy or best practice guidance. I suppose for me, and I would consider that the substantive plan for the area, the Strabane area plan, would be the material consideration. The rural reminder 123.1 says that the rural remainder is deserving of protection from undesirable forms of development. 123.2.2 states that we should ensure that new developments blend into the landscape and that proposals that give rise to traffic hazards or public health nuisance will be resisted. I would believe, looking at the photographs, that this turbine is presented as being double the size of the other one. And if you look at the figures in, I think it's figures 8 and 9, that already stands out in the landscape. And I think to double that is going to make it stand out even more. And it's most definitely, in my opinion, not going to blend into the countryside. I would consider that you know, the size of what's being proposed is nearly in line with a commercial turbine. But I don't see any additional output coming from it, so I don't see any additional benefit coming from that application. As Mrs. Dolan alluded to there, the original application was not supported because of noise. And I know this new turbine is being presented in terms of helping to alleviate some of that. But I think on the downside of that is from a visual amenity perspective, it's going to definitely stand out, and it's not going to be beneficial in the environment. I'm also not convinced actually by the information that's come back to me in terms of some of that noise. And I suppose the problem is that when the turbine goes up and there's a complaint, then we're into sort of territory of trying to claw things back. And I suppose I'm not convinced by the information, even in terms of the background noise. I'm not convinced by that around the whole noise thing. Sorry, I'm just tracking the rest of my points here. So even looking at PPS 18, the visual amenity, I've already spoken about that. I think it's double the size of the turbine that's there already, and I think it's not it's going to stand out. I know the report had also identified that the Cleator Uplands LCA 19 had a medium sensitivity for turbines. Back in 2008, a report was commissioned then, and the landscape architect said that West Tyrone was nearly at capacity for wind turbines. And since that, there's been a lot more approved. So on that basis, I would like to propose that we overturn the officer's recommendation to approve this application.
There's a proposal from Councillor Devine. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Fleming. Okay, members, there's a proposal in front of you from Councillor Devine to overturn the decision. So does everybody in agreement, or have we any dissenters, abstentions? You can let me know. So I take it, Alderman Kerrigan.
Chair, I'll go against this one. I recall before we had applications there for replacement of turbines for the 30-metre hub to go to a 50-metre hub, and this committee rejected them, and both of them were successful at the PAC. So on this occasion, I'll just go against this one, but content with the rest of the committee's forward. Thank you, Chair.
So I take it then that everybody else is in agreement to overturn the officer's recommendation. Thank you. Okay, then we're moving on to application number 8. This is proposed single glamping pod at Sir Halter Road, Newton Stewart. And Laura's taken us through this one. Thank you, Laura.
Application LA11 2023-1863 is an application for a full application for a single glamping pod located at 5 Strahalter Road, Newton Stewart, and the recommendation is to refuse. So this is the site location plan and aerial image of the site. So the application site comprises of residential curtilage of number 5 Strahalter Road and the southeastern corner of an adjoining agricultural field. It's located on the southern side of Strahalter Road and to the east of the Strill River. The boundaries of the site are defined by a mix of fence and hedging, with the western boundary being undefined. The land within the site is predominantly level, but the remainder of the field slopes away to the west towards the river. The southern part of the site, which comprises the agricultural land, is within the historic garden of Moyle House. The house itself being 140 metres south of the site. A Moyle Bridge is also located to the west of the access. So this is the proposed plans of the glamping pod. As you can see, it's a single-storey structure with a small footprint, and it's proposed to be located there in the southeastern corner of the application site. So this is the policy context under which this application was assessed, including the Span Area Plan, the SPPS, PPS 21, PPS 2, PPS 3 and PPS 16. So there were a number of consultations in respect of this planning application. None of the consultees had any objections to the planning application following the submission of information and have provided relevant conditions. Primarily, in order to establish the principle of this proposal, it's assessed under PPS 21, which directs you then to PPS 16, which is tourism. So policy TSM5 is the most relevant policy within that to assess a proposal of this nature, where it requires the plan approval can be granted in either of the 3 cases that are put forward. So there, in terms of Part A of that, it's required to be located within the grounds of an existing approved hotel or self-catering complex, guest house or holiday park. So clearly this application is not located in any of those locations. It's within the domestic curtilage of an existing single dwelling. So therefore it doesn't meet criteria A. In terms of criteria B, it allows for a cluster of 3 or more units provided at or close to an existing approved tourist amenity that is or will be a significant visitor attraction in its own right. So this proposal is to provide one single glamping pod that can sleep a maximum of 2 people, just outside the curtilage of a domestic dwelling. Again, so that it's not a cluster of 3 or more units. And it's not close to an existing or approved tourist amenity. That's a significant visitor attraction. The agent has submitted a supporting statement in an effort to prove compliance with that criteria. But however, officers have considered this, and it lists a number of local attractions which are in the general locality of the site. Therefore, the proposal doesn't meet criteria B either. In terms of criteria C, which allows for restoration, this proposal is for a single brand new glamping pod, so it doesn't fall within that criteria either. Just to point out, the policy TSM5 states that self-catering development is required to be subsidiary in scale and ancillary to the primary tourism use of the site. Clearly, there's no tourism use at this site. So overall, having considered policy TSM5, it's clear that the proposal doesn't meet any of the criteria and therefore wouldn't be acceptable in principle under that policy. We've also considered it under policy TSM6, but again, this policy isn't relevant as this is a single unit, a single glamping pod, and isn't considered to be a holiday park. So overall, the proposal isn't acceptable in principle under PPS 16. However, it's assessed under the remaining policies, planning policies, PPS 2, CTY 13 and 14 of PPS 21 in terms of its design and integration and rural character. This is just an image here to the bottom of the screen of what the proposed pod would look like, and the upper image there is the location of it. Views of the site are localised and limited. It will be set behind intervening trees, given its small scale and the location of it set back from the road. It won't appear as a prominent feature on the landscape and therefore will comply with the above policies. In terms of the access, it's proposed to use existing access for the dwelling. Following the submission of additional information and considering of the proposed usage of the glamping pod, officers are content that the proposal, the visibility displays can be provided to an appropriate standard. Sufficient parking can be provided within the site. DFI roads have no objections, so therefore the proposal complies with PPS 3 and policy TSM 7 in that respect. In terms of amenity, environmental health have no objections. There's sufficient separation distance between the pod and the residential dwelling, which would reduce any potential impacts in terms of amenity. So therefore the proposal complies with the SPPS and policy TSM 7 in that respect. In terms of the nearby built heritage features, again, we've consulted with HED, who have no objection to the proposal, given the scale of the proposal and the separation distance. And historic monuments have no objection. Therefore, the proposal complies with PPS 6 and TSM 7. In terms of natural heritage, the trees are non-native, so they have little ecological value. There's no vegetation removal anticipated. It is located to adjacent to the woodland, which is a priority habitat. Drainage paths will be excavated by hand and followed by stone by clay by hand, and the septic tank is considered suitable. The development is 90 metres from the Stroll River, but SES are content that the proposal won't have an adverse impact on this European site. Therefore, officers are content overall that the proposal complies with PPS 2 and policy TSM 7 with regard to natural heritage. In terms of flood risk, PPS 15, the site doesn't lie within but is adjacent to the fluvial floodplain. DFI Rivers are content that it's elevated above this, and they've provided a condition that the floor level should be above that level, and that has been demonstrated on the drawings. A drainage assessment wouldn't be required, and therefore we're content that the proposal complies with PPS 15. Just to summarise, in terms of the principle of this development, the proposal is contrary to the SPPS and policy TSM 5 of PPS 16. This is a single glamping pod. It's not located within a cluster of 3 or more units close to an existing or approved tourist amenity that will be a significant visitor attraction. It doesn't involve the restoration of an existing clachan or close. It's also contrary to policy TSM 6 of PPS 16 in that the proposed development doesn't constitute a holiday park. And it's also contrary to the SPPS and policy CTY 1 of PPS 21 and that it doesn't meet any of the cases in which non-residential development would be permitted in the countryside. And therefore refusal is recommended for the reasons set out in the planning report. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We've one indicator speaker, Mr. Joe McCormick. You can forward now, Joe. Right, Joe, you're back onto the committee today again. You have 5 minutes, as you know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, councillors, planning officers and councillors. The Springs region is an area of outstanding natural beauty, which is located in the west of Northern Ireland. The wider Sperrins area stretches from Donegal border to the west, to Lough Neagh in the east, and to the Atlantic shores in the north. The natural asset of the mountain range mixed with the unspoilt landscape of winding rivers, sun-swept valleys, scenic lakes, and all translate into a region recognised as one of the most idyllic geographical areas of rural Ireland. The site is well screened and cannot be seen from public roads. The site is right in the middle of that area and therefore very central for holidaymakers. Derry City and Strabane District Councils aim to promote tourism and encourage visitors to stay in the Sperrins. One big problem for Derry City and Strabane District Council is the lack of accommodation for these visitors. I am sure the council are aware of this problem, but obviously don't want to highlight it in case it puts visitors off coming to our area. The Northern Ireland Tourist Board are aware of this also and do try to encourage people to invest in the provision of accommodation. Therefore, you would think the planning department would be encouraging applicants by not putting obstacles in their way and grant approval for tourism projects such as this. There are a lot of local attractions, and I have listed 25 in my concept statement. The following local attractions are all available for visitors to the area. I won't mention all 25, but I feel I must mention some. The Mourne and Stool River for fishing. Daily and weekly fishing passes are readily available. Harry Avery's Castle Historic Monument, circa 1320. Stuart's Castle Historic Monument, circa 1435. Newton Stewart's six-arch old bridge across the Mourne River, built in 1727. Hood & Co. listed shopfront. Bessie Bell and Mary Grey Mountains for walking. Gortin Glen Forest Park. Glenelly Valley Walks. Sperrin Mountains, Ulster American Folk Park, Newton Stewart Pubs, Connage Bar for Great Guinness, and barbecues and entertainment and Castle Hotel. The Abington Collection, Car Museum, Military, etc. The Alley and Struil Art Centres, Barnscourt Estate, Newton Stewart Centre 2000, and Newton Stewart Golf Club. These are mostly within a radius of 10 miles of my client's site. There are numerous others in the vicinity that I have not listed. Tourism plays a vital role in the preservation of our historic and cultural recreational resources and helps to sustain and promote our internationally renowned landscapes. It creates a unique sense of place, provoking pride and confidence within local communities, providing fertile ground for enterprise, creating new independent small businesses and new services or facilities that could not be sustained by local population alone. Road Service highlighted the problem with sightlines and road safety back in August 23, and my client immediately trimmed the hedging and agreed to move walls back to improve the sightlines. Road Service advised Planning Department that they now have no objections to the application, subject to conditions to be listed if an approval is issued. As far as I am aware, there are no other objections from consultees or private individuals. A similar application for a single glamping pod was approved by this council, reference number LA11 2023/1839/F. This proposal would be not only of financial benefit to my client, but to the shops, pubs, etc. in Newton Stewart, and I ask the Planning Committee do not accept the recommendation to refuse and the permission be granted. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. McCormick. Over to the committee members now. Have you any questions for Mr. McCormick? Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you, Chair. And just asking the question, I suppose you have your list there, Joe, as detailed there in regards to your various attractions in the wider Newton Stewart and the Sperrin area. Same list, I suppose, for the Glenelly application. The Giants just haven't made it onto it yet, but maybe they'll get on to the next one. Just a question there in regards to it here. The application site looks large enough there. Is there any reason why the applicant has not went in regards to TSM5 that it's to be 3 or more pods effectively. I'm just querying on that one. The site looks as a larger site. It looks like it has capacity to hold at least 3 pods there from looking at it there. So I'm just querying in regards to that. I mean, that's one of your points there, that this application is failing on the TSM5, that it's not meeting A, B, and C, and it could meet B if they did expand it. Instead of putting 1 pod, they increased it. So I'm just getting a wee bit of confirmation on that one. If you could clarify that. Thank you, Joe.
Mr. Chairman, certainly the site could accommodate 3, and the applicant has thought about putting 3 on the site, but he just doesn't want to do anything at the moment, because it's very expensive to develop a site for 3 glamping pods, and he would prefer just to do 1 at the moment. If it does take off, he is willing to do 3, and certainly the site is good enough to accommodate 3, and it still won't be a visual intrusion for people using the main road, the A5 at the moment, or the side roads.
Alderman Kerrigan.
Oh, no, just to follow on, there's spade work already been done. The biggest end of the cost in regards to sight lines and getting bits and pieces done, in my view, would have been done. Not much difference going with 3 and 1, but that's just comment, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other queries for Mr. McCormick? Questions? No, thank you, Mr. McCormick. Free you go. Okay, members, any questions for Laura? Councillor Geller.
Thank you. Just, I suppose it was highlighted there on that presentation. Was there any material consideration given to the, I don't know, that Joe talked about obstructions and that matter, but I don't think planners are putting obstructions towards tourism. It's more of just planning policy. But my question is, was there any consideration given to, local sustainable people trying to create a small craft industry and are doing it through this means? This is 2024. And craft has been going on for hundreds of years and all the rest. And this is just the modern element of it. And that it could possibly lead to identifying needs in the countryside that are very countryside friendly. They're sustainable. They're not ruining the environment. And they're actually encouraging people to use the countryside. Was there any material consideration given to that effect?
Okay, go ahead, Laura.
Thanks for the question. Well, in terms of the policy, we wouldn't be required to consider that, but there wouldn't have been any case really put forward in terms of that either, other than the agent's submission in terms of the proximity to local attractions from the proposal. Obviously we appreciate that, this, there will be a pod here and people may or may not use the local attractions in the area, but there was no more further information submitted in that respect.
Thanks for that, Laura. Punch, would like to come in now.
Yes, just to add to what Laura said. Well, basically, Councillor, planning policy PPS 21, and also the tourism, it directs you to the tourism PPS. They will have taken into account in their preparation what development is considered to be acceptable in the countryside, and that would have also taken into account at the time that those policies were formulated what the actual need for development in the countryside is, and that would have taken into account, what you've said about, sustainable tourism and low grade tourism that's acceptable in the countryside. So it's not, so there were specific, policies brought in there, like a farm diversification or something that would be considered in the countryside. So it was considered that at the time of the policies that there are certain types of tourism development which are considered appropriate in the countryside. So, for example, with relation to the self-catering, if there were 3 or more units which are at or close to a tourism amenity, and that's the only ones that were listed there are the likes of, you know, like the Gorch and Glens Park or the Ulster American Folk Park. Those are tourism amenities, and the idea is that if there was a development of 3 or more units at or close to such tourism amenities, then that would be the form of development which is acceptable in the countryside, and it would be appropriate to support the rural economy. So it's built into the actual policies themselves, both with PPS 21 and PPS 16 tourism, the types of development which would support the rural tourism and the rural economy. So hopefully that clarifies on that point.
Thanks, Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, I appreciate that response. It's just and my thought process, it's that policy sort of prejudice is against the poor person trying to develop, where there's affordability and there's sustainability and there's elements of saying, how do I get this started? And I can't afford 3, 6, but the wealthy can come in and get approved, and the starter upper, you know, is policy prejudicism.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Any other queries for the officers? No. Okay, then, members, there's a recommendation there in front of you to refuse this application. So over to yourselves now.
A query, just through the chair. There was a single pod approved previously at this committee. Is there a precedent set?
I think that's a separate planning application. We'll deal with what we have in front of us here for this one. Thank you. Councillor Devine.
Having taken all of the information we've received into consideration, I do believe that there is great tourist potential in the area that this application's in. It's an area of outstanding natural beauty. We've highlighted that there's a lack of accommodation in the area. There's a lot of local attractions. Newton Stewart is a conservation area. This week, the final draft of the regeneration framework, the Newton Stewart Town Centre regeneration framework, is going to be brought forward to ENR, and that has a very strong focus on tourism. And I think we can't push that aspect if we don't have accommodation, and when people come to the area, they don't have anywhere to stay. And I think that's where some of that economic benefit comes from, and people coming and staying in the area. And particularly in a rural area. And I take the point that this is only for one pod, but I suppose there's potential there for further ones. I think we do need to consider again the Strabane Area Plan 120.5.3 said there should be sympathetic consideration of tourist-related proposals in areas of outstanding natural beauty, and the rural remainder 123.2.3 that economic benefit to the rural area should be balanced against other factors. So I am going to propose that we overturn the decision of the officers and that we accept this application.
Okay, members, our proposal there from Councillor Devine. Councillor Logue.
Yeah, I certainly agree with all that has been said by Councillor Caroline. So I want to second that too as well.
Thank you, Councillor Logue. Okay, members, we have a proposal in front of us to overturn the decision. Have we any dissenting voices? Or?
Thank you, Chair. I went against the one in Glenelly. I'll go against the one in Strahalter.
Thanks, Councillor Alderman Kerrigan. Okay, then it seems it's unanimous bar one person, so that recommendation to refuse has been overturned. Thank you, members. Listen, we're going to take a 10-minute break, but we will be starting sharp at 4:20. Thank you. We're going to make a start again. This time we're going to application number 2, LE11 bar 2023 bar 1602 bar F, and Rosie's taking us through this one. Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you, Chair. Item 2 is LA11 2023-1602F, and it's a proposal for landscaping and associated works providing new pathways, railings and fencing, part culvert and path crossing over an existing stream, picnic area and outdoor gym, community garden and puffin crossing, and new gates west of number 292 Clonelach. And I'll just go to the site location map. It's on lands between the housing developments at Clondara and Clonelach, east of number 51 Clondara and west of 292 Clonelach. The recommendation is to approve, and the application is before you today as there are more than 5 objections. So the plan and policy context is set out in the planning report before you, and the consultation responses and summary. There are no objections from DFI Roads, NI Water, Environmental Health, DFI Rivers, SES and NIE. We've had 7 representations, and the concerns that were raised in summary are antisocial behaviour and noise, the need and location for the proposed development, road safety, and then other concerns regarding dog fouling and a lack of consultation. These slides just show the location of the development and the site at present. This is in the northern section of the site, just off the main thoroughfare. And the lands further to the north of the site, and then lands to the south of the site. So the landscaping plan shows all the works that are proposed to be undertaken as just described in terms of new pathways and railings and fencing. There's a culvert proposed in a central section of the site over an existing stream, which will allow a path to be provided, which will link the housing developments with the existing play park. There's a picnic area and community garden provided in the southern section of the site. And the puffin crossing is on the main road that will allow it all to be linked up and allow safe crossing. So the material considerations are in respect of open space under policy OS1 of PPS 8. And this policy operates a presumption against the loss of existing open space. So as the site comprises open space at present, and the facilities proposed will enhance the use of the area and will bring substantial community benefits. Officers consider that the proposal complies with policy OS1 of PPS 8. PPS 3 has policy AMP1 in terms of accessible environments. And at present, the northern and southern sections of the existing open space are separated from each other by the main thoroughfare. And a puffin crossing is proposed to provide safe access, and new pedestrian accesses are proposed throughout the space. So DFI Roads have no objection, and officers consider that policy AMP1 is complied with. In respect of impacts on natural heritage, Shared Environmental Services advise the proposal would not be likely to have a significant effect on any European site. And in terms of habitat, species and natural heritage, mature trees that are within the site will be retained and new planting undertaken. In terms of flood risk, in terms of surface water flooding, the new hard surfaced areas within the picnic area and community garden will be constructed using porous surfacing to allow natural infiltration of rainwater. And path surfaces will be graded to allow runoff to the grass areas either side. So surface water flooding is unlikely. In terms of culverting, policy PPS 15 states that a culvert is not normally proposed. not normally permitted unless it's necessary to provide access to development or for engineering reasons. And given that the proposed culvert is only a short length of culvert of 8.5 metres, and it will allow better pedestrian path to be provided, officers consider that in this case, that short area of culverting is acceptable. So in conclusion, members, officers have considered the proposal against the Derry area plan, the relevant planning policies, the consultee responses and the residents' concerns. And on balance, given the enhanced provision to the existing area of open space, approval is recommended for the reasons set out in the planning report. Thank you.
Okay, members, with no speakers indicated on this one. So, any questions for the officer? Nope. So, members, there's recommendation there to approve, so I'll hand it over to yourselves. Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. I know the area very well. It's a new community, and I would like to congratulate the Apex Housing Association on building on the community, and I'm very happy to propose that we accept the recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Murphy, can I have a seconder? And Councillor Riley, second. Thank you. So is everybody content with that? All in agreement? Okay, then we'll move on to item 7, LE 11, bar 2024, 0083 bar F, and Laura's taking us through this one.
Application L11 2024-0083F is a full application for the replacement of an existing community building with associated site works at 113 Spring Hill Park, Strabane, and the recommendation is to approve. So here we have the application site outlined in red and an aerial image of the site as it currently exists. It consists of a single-storey community centre. You can see there on the aerial photo there's a play park and a shed and an outbuilding there in the site as well. It's enclosed currently by a 2-metre high security mesh fence. It's located on white land as defined in the Strabane area plan, and it's located within an established housing development. This is some images just of the existing building on the application site, and you can see the play park there as well too. In terms of the policy context, this application is assessed under the SPPS, the Strabane Area Plan, PPS 2, 3, 8 and PPS 15. There have been a number of consultations taking place in this application following some amendments and additional information. None of the consultees have any objections to the proposal and have provided conditions and advice. In terms of the principle of this proposal, this is an existing community facility located within a residential development. It's considered to fall under Class D1 community uses. And the agent has submitted supporting information which details that the porta cabin has been on site for 26 years. There's approximately 300 people that use the site and use the centre on a weekly basis. The centre is owned and managed by the council and run by the registered charity. It also has a youth association, which is a community-based project to address the needs of young people in the local area. And it's a centre run by the residents for the local people. And it's clear that there aren't any other sites accessible to the local community as the site is based within the Spring Hill Estate. So in terms of location and the need for the community centre at this location, officers will be content that it complies with the Strabane Area Plan and the SPPS in that respect, and therefore would be acceptable in principle. So it's also, we also considered this under PPS 8, given that there's a play park, which is within the site. However, as detailed in the plans, this will be retained in situ. There'll be a slight encroachment onto it, but this, it won't be significant. And therefore we consider the proposal complies with policy OS1 of PPS 8 also. So this slide just shows the design of the proposed community centre. As I said, it will remove the existing buildings that are on the site to be replaced by this single building, which will have a larger footprint and is of a modern design. It is single storey, whilst it has a varied roof light, and it provides a number of functions internally. It's proposed to be finished in white coloured render with concrete roof tiles, and overall it's considered that the design is acceptable and suitable at this location within the residential area, and therefore will comply with the Strabane Area Plan in that respect. In terms of amenity, environmental health have been consulted and haven't raised any objections. It's considered that the proposed buildings located a suitable distance from any surrounding residential properties, so there'll be no adverse impacts to the amenity of any of those dwellings, and that noise isn't likely to increase over and beyond what is currently experienced in the centre, and therefore would comply with the SPPS. In terms of PPS 3, the access and parking, so the site doesn't provide a vehicular access and doesn't hold any current parking spaces, but officers are content, given the use of the site, that there's sufficient parking within the area, and obviously most people will attend the site from the local area, which is likely to be on foot. DFI Roads have considered the proposal and don't have any objections to it. In terms of PPS 15, a drainage assessment was submitted. DFI Rivers have considered this, and they don't have any objections to the proposal, provided that the drainage assessment is complied with. So therefore the proposal complies with PPS 15. So to summarise, the development proposes to remove the existing buildings on the site and replace with a new building of modern design. The site's been used by the community for since the 1980s, and is well established within the heart of the community. The regeneration design scheme provides enhancement of the site for its use, and therefore the proposal complies with the SPPS, the Strabane Area Plan, PPS 8, PPS 2, PPS 3 and PPS 15, and approval is recommended subject to the conditions set out in the planning report. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Don't have any indicator speakers, so we'll go straight to ask any questions of the officer at all. No questions. Okay, members, there's a recommendation there to approve this, so I'll hand over to yourselves. Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Chair. I think everybody in the room knows the substantial benefits that community centres like this bring into residents in the local community. That temporary building that was there was a great asset to the community and provided much needed facilities and services there. And I think this new larger building will provide much improved services and facilities, and better meet the needs of the local people. And hopefully maybe we'd see even increased numbers in terms of the 300 people that are using that. These community centres are at the heart of our community. And if there's no further comments, I would be content to make a proposal.
Maybe ask such comment.
So I propose that we accept the recommendations.
Thank you for proposing. Can I seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Right, I'd actually seen Councillor Mooney first, so sorry about that. That's right. So just confirmation then that that's been approved, and we'll move on to the next one, which is item 9, LE 11 bar 2023 bar 1778 bar F and Malky's taking us through this one.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. LA 11 2023 1778F is a full application for the provision of new surface level car park of 93 spaces with 1.1 metre high paladin perimeter fence and amenity lighting for Leaf Air Community Centre and playing fields. The development includes a new vehicular access on Lenamore Road, Lenamore Pass, the area with the automatic barrier signage and a new ramped access and steps to the community centre. And the application site, as outlined in the site, is it lands approximately 18 metres northeast of Leaf Air Community Centre, 20A Leaf Air Park, Derry, and the recommendation is to approve. The applications before members today as the applicant is Derry City and Strabane Council. So the application site is outlined in red is an existing area of green open space located to the northeast of Leaf Air Community Centre. Proposed access off the existing Lenamore Pass, which leads into Leaf Air Park. At present, there is no perimeter fences. It's essentially a green grassed area, and it can be viewed also from the Glengalla Road. So just to give an idea of the context of the site, you have the Leaf Air Community Centre, which lies to the southwest of the site, which includes an existing small car park, a two-storey community centre building, a formal play park, 3G pitches, as well as an R grass pitch. And I suppose the need for the application is related to the success of the existing facilities and the requirement to provide additional parking for the facilities at Leaf Air Community Centre and the associated sporting fields and park. So it is a view of the site from the Glengalla Road and at the top here, and as the other is from the Lenamore Pass, looking back up towards the site. The site is in a raised, elevated green open field space beside Leaf Air Park. This is a view back from the community centre car park back towards the site. So this is the existing car park at Leaf Air Community Centre. And we've also been provided with digital images of the application proposal and the proposed layout of the car park and its approximate location to the existing properties in the area. And again, here's a detailed drawing of the actual layout of the car park. And the access is up here is the Lenamore Pass, and what you see at the bottom left-hand corner here is a new path and steps with the existing monument leading on to the existing car park at Leaf Air. So the policy context is set out within the case officer report. The main considerations are the Derry Area Plan, the SPPS and PPS 8, as well as the other ones listed in the application report. We consulted a number of bodies in relation to the application. There have been no objections. Again, the responses are outlined in the report. We received a number of reports in support of the application, which have been considered by the relevant consultees. And again, there's no objections subject to standard conditions. We've had one letter of representation from a local resident raised a number of issues in relation to the laws of the open space, the visual impact of the proposed car park, congestion at currently presenting itself at the site, suggestion of alternative sites for the car park, and concerns about antisocial behaviour in relation to the proposed steps. Again, the officers have considered each of these points and have outlined our consideration of those and how we weigh those up in the report. We've also had 6 letters of support from a number of local community groups, including Don Bosco's Football Club, Derry District Youth Foil Cup, D&D UFA, Outer North Neighbourhood Partnership, Sustaining Tenancies, and Ask Advice Services, SCAG. Again, that the details of the letter of support are located within the report, and just in summary there, relate to the planning gain in terms of the dealing with the existing congestion at the site and improving the local facilities. And the general positives will come from the car parking. So the proposed physical development includes 93 spaces. It will be a level access car park with a ramped access. It will have an automatic barrier which we close at night. It'll have a 1.1 metre high paladin fence. I suggest that the main needs for the proposal is to alleviate current parking congestion. Anybody's familiar with it will know that currently there's an overflow situation where the small car park isn't dealing with the level of cars attracted to the site. And this has presented itself in cars parking along the Lenamore Pass and also from the residential areas of Leaf Air Park. This is an attempt to alleviate these issues. We've also received a drainage assessment, which we consulted Rivers Agency, and they're content with that. So the Dairy Area Plan is relevant in a number of areas, including BE1 urban design. We're content, given the urban context of the site, that in terms of character and design, that the proposal is acceptable. There is no concerns in relation to PPS2. PPS3 roads have, BFA roads have considered the application and are content, and they've all considered the non-motorised users also, and again, they're content with the proposal in that respect. As I say, the drainage assessment has been considered by Rivers Agency. We have no issues with that. I suppose the main policy consideration from a planning perspective is the loss of the open space. PPS 8 is the retained planning policy, which deals with the loss of open space, and there is a presumption against loss of open space unless an exception is met. That exception is that to the presumption is where development would produce such community benefits that would decisively outweigh its loss. And considering this, officers took into account the letters of support, from the local youth and sporting organisations, as well as the local community organisations. And we've also took into account, the planning gain related to the issues that they'll address if approved. So whilst there will be a loss of open space, we think that this does meet the exception criteria, and there will be significant community benefits if approved. So overall, having considered all the above, the consultee responses, third-party representations, both for and against the application, officers have recommend approval subject to the conditions as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Malachy. Again, there's no speakers indicated in this one, so as members, any questions for Malachy? No questions. So recommendation in front of you there, members, so over to yourselves. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Malachy, for the report. I suppose the community centre and the football pitches have become a victim of their own success. And if we know that area at all, it can be real chaotic at times and this proposal will go a long way to alleviating that traffic problem that exists regularly on site. So I would be happy to support the officer's recommendation.
That's a proposal there from Councillor Murphy. Have a seconder? Councillor Riley, thank you. Members, we'll move on to applications 11 and 12. Actually, I won't take the two of these together, although just to let you know, we'll be having a separate vote on them come the time. So Malachy, again.
Thank you, Chair. LA 11 2022 0264 and LA 11 2022 0265. It's a full, sorry, it's 2024. Actually, I'm sorry, it's a typo on each of those. It's 2024 for each of those applications. This is a full and a Lusted Baldwin application. It relates to an addition of a ground floor glazed single-story porch front extension, an addition of setback second floor glazed link extension to existing new build entrance atrium adjoining of Lusted Baldwin 6070 69 Ebrington, known as the Clock Tower, an upgrade of existing Clock Tower central porch entrance steps to form new landing, handrails, and grand steps to meet building regulations. And the site is the Ebrington Hotel, and formerly known as Baldwin's 63, 67, 69, and 79 Ebrington Square, Derry. And our recommendation is to approve the full application and to approve consent for the Lusted Baldwin application. So the application site is the recently constructed Ebrington Hotel, which is located in Ebrington Square. You'll be familiar with the application site. The actual proposal for the full application was before members and approved by members. So you'll be familiar with the walk up from the Peace Bridge to the existing modern extension. So this is digital image. There's a number of, I suppose, minor alterations to the existing hotel, mainly in the form of an addition of a second floor glass link between the modern element of the hotel and the Clock Tower building. And there's also some improvements to the porch to help with our wellar, I suppose, and then steps at the Clock Tower as well. So again, the agent has provided some digital images of before and after, which I think are helpful. And again, you'll see as now and as proposed. And from the square and the parade ground looking towards the site and to the rear entirely within the courtyard of the hotel. And they've also provided digital images of the new steps, and you'll see what's existing there. These are just to bring it up to modern building regulation standards. And here's the drawing provided by the architect also. So look, I've covered the list of works here. So they're just outlined there again in the slide. The policy context is set out in the RDS, the area plan, the SPPS, and given the location and the context of a site, PPS 6, because we're dealing with an extension to an alteration to a Lusted Baldwin. And we're also dealing with an application site, which is within a scheduled monument, i.e. the Star Fort at Ebrington. So we've consulted a number of bodies, both on the full and the Lusted Baldwin consent application. So in terms of the full, we consulted monuments, DFA roads, environmental health, NI water, Locks Agency, and shared environmental services. As you'll note from the report, there's no issues whatsoever. And in terms of historic, the Lusted Baldwin consent, we've also consulted historic buildings. And again, they're content with the proposal subject to one condition, which is set out in the Lusted Baldwin consent report, which relates to the provision of final details of the steps. Yeah, it's a category B2 Lusted Baldwin. No issues from HED in relation to that or the Star Fort wall. And that's just the details of the proposed condition, which is fairly standard and accepted by officers. So in summary, this officers believe this is a fairly minor alteration to an existing property, which will make a positive contribution to what's already there, and it's been accepted by the relevant statutory consultees, and as such, officers would recommend approval for the full application and recommend the consent is granted for the Lusted Baldwin consent. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Malachy. Have any questions for Malachy? Okay, members, we'll go to number 11, first of all, the LA 11 2024. Oh, Christopher, apologies.
Chair, I have no questions. So if you wanted to continue on with with, well, I suppose if you're asking for a proposal, for item 11 in particular, I'm more than happy to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation. The works that were carried out at this particular building have proved to be a massive improvement to what was there previously. It's a high quality asset in the heart of our city centre, and it's something, and the proposed works are minor in nature, but they will be an improvement to what's there already. So on that basis, I'm more than happy to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation for item 11. Thank you.
Can I have a second for item 11, please? Councillor Mooney. Is everyone in agreement? Yep. So number 12 then, can we have a proposer and seconder as well?
Chair, on the same basis, I am happy to propose the application, and in my view, doesn't take away from the listed building in any way or the scheduled monument beside it. So I've no issue proposing we accept the recommendation to approve for item 12.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. And Councillor Mooney, second. Thank you, members. Okay, then we're moving on to agenda item 8, confirmation of 3 preservation order. And Punch is going to take us through this one.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to seek your consideration and agreement to confirm a 3 preservation order on lands at Belmont House Special School and Grounds, the Ardnashee School and College and Grounds, and also the field to the west and southwest of a Belmont House School, which are just off the Racecourse Road here in the city. Your report, members, section 2 sets out the overall process of making a TPO generally, including the criteria that are considered in making the provisional, and then the confirmed 3 preservation order. The report also sets out the background to the specific 3 preservation order, and that is that these school sites are owned by the Education Authority, the responsible body. And in March this year, the council was alerted that there were maintenance works had commenced on site, and that included some lopping, topping, and also some felling of trees. Therefore, the officers approached the consultants, or sorry, the agents who were undertaking the work, and we got a copy of the tree survey which had been undertaken for Education Authority, and we liaised with both parties, and members made a visit to the site and found that many of the trees were of considerable public amenity value throughout the site, both in woodland groups, and there were quite a few mature oak and beech trees at the front of the site particularly. Therefore, a provisional 3 preservation order was immediately issued onto the site on the 27th of March. And in accordance with procedures, the council has 6 months to confirm that, provisional 3 preservation order. In line with those procedures, the council then commissioned an independent arboriculturist to take a tree survey. And it was required because, you know, there was already an existing survey done for Education Authority, but it is a large site, and the council needed to be sure of the quality and the nature of the trees on site. So we have a tree survey, and that's included in the appendix. Also, as part of that process, the council notified the landowner, education authority, and the occupiers, the schools and the neighbour. And they had 28 days to submit any comments or objections. No such comments or objections were received from any of those parties to the provisional TPO. As I said, the Andrew Bow report is included with this item. And in summary, that surveyed 263 trees has been healthy and worthy of retention, as well as a number of woodland areas. It recommended that there was a scrub area, was not worthy of protection, and there were 11 trees, mostly a mix of ash and beech, which were also not recommended for protection as they were in poor health, dead or dying. We've given some photographs and some details of the individual trees and some of the issues in the report, members, but most of the trees were considered to be in fair condition with a predicted lifespan of 20+ years. So there's a lot of these are substantial and good trees. Therefore, it is considered that those trees, other than the ones excluded, do meet the legislation and the criteria for continued protection under a tree preservation order. So the recommendation is that tree preservation order should be confirmed with the relevant modifications, i.e. those trees which are to be excluded, all as per the tree survey report and our assessment, so as to protect the trees identified. So therefore, members, that is the recommendation to confirm this TPO. Thank you.
Thank you, Pontius. Any questions there for Pontius? Councillor McNeilis.
Chair, do you mind if I just ask quickly, when it says condition and most of them are fair, what is the stages of the conditions? Is there like very good, good, fair, poor, or where does fair fall on that scale? Thank you.
Thank you. Just from memory, this is a fairly standard report, and they set out in accordance with the British standard. They set out, those are the wording that would normally be used, and there are, I think there is an excellent, and at the other end, there's dead or poor. So fair is in the middle. I suppose there is an excellent and a good. There's also poor and dead or dying. So fair, it's reasonable. It's, as I said, it's generally more than 20 years of a lifespan. So nearly any trees have some blemishes and some issues, but fair is that there's not immediate concern. They're certainly not poor, or they're not dead or dying.
Yeah, and just one more. When it says about the age, some of them are described as mature, but some of them are described as, there's something that's like older than mature. There's one there I seen. I'm just wondering at the age of these trees, when it describes them as mature, what kind of age are you speaking about?
That depends again on the species. The arboriculturists wouldn't give an individual age, but yeah, over mature are the ones which are, they're probably just past their very best. If it was a specimen tree at its very height, that would be considered to be mature. If they're over mature, then they could be on their way. But like, for example, an oak tree could be, it could be mature from, I would have thought from probably 100 to 200 years old. You know, some of them are very old, they'll be older than that there. A mature beech tree is probably likely to be, I would have thought, from probably 50 years on. You know, some of the primary species, you know, like a birch or that there would probably be mature from 25, 30 years on. So it really depends on the species, and there's certainly a matter of judgment there as to the approximate age.
Okay, just the reason I'm asking is to kind of put in my head what age these trees are, and you know how long they've been there for, and the importance of the heritage of the trees. That's why I'm asking what these different terms mean, because there's early mature, and then there's mature, and I was just wondering what that meant, and you know what the significance of the age of the trees was. So thank you.
Any further questions here for this? Okay, members, there's a recommendation there to agree with this. Over to yourself, Councillor McNeilis.
Yep. I'm happy to confirm the TPO based on public amenity conservation and the heritage of the trees on the site. I'm happy to confirm it.
Seconder, please, Councillor Jackson. Thank you. Okay, members, item 9, list of decisions made, and item 10, appeals update on your agenda and in your pack there. Do you wish to discuss anything in 9 or 10? No. Okay. Well, like to move into confidential. Can I have a proposer and seconder, please? Councillor Riley and Councillor Devine. Thank you.